Good morning, everyone. I hope your day is going well. Welcome back to another video of me analyzing amazing digital circus characters. Today we'll be taking a look at Ragatha, and I think this one is going to end up being very interesting. In the Gangle video, I talked about the difference between character moments that I wanted versus character moments that are necessary for the story. And the eventual conclusion I came to was that although I would have liked Gangle to have a bigger moment of catharsis where she talks about her feelings on Jax, it ultimately isn't necessary for the story that the series is trying to tell. And maybe it's a little poignant and fitting that this is the one time that we don't get full access to her emotions. This is not the conclusion that I've come to with Ragatha. And the reason why comes down to this moment right here.
Didn't want to lose any more friends. Show us what I know, huh?
Ragatha, you were the first real friend I made here. And despite all that's happened, I still consider you my closest friend.
My first feeling when I heard this was confusion. And I know I'm not alone in that. And that's kind of a problem because confusion is almost definitely not the emotion we're supposed to be feeling. When I heard this for the first time, all I could think was, really? Ragatha? And to be clear, I love Ragatha. I think she's really interesting and complex, and I relate to her struggles a lot. I think it's good for her to have a friend like Pomni. But if you'd asked me before the finale which character I thought Pomni was closest to, I wouldn't have said Ragatha. And that's clearly a problem for what is supposed to be a very impactful moment for the two of them. I love this moment where the two of them hug and reaffirm their connection, and it brings literal color back to a world that's gone gray. But I don't know if the narrative did enough to establish their bond before this, and it makes this scene less effective than it could have been. And that's what we'll be exploring today. We'll be taking a look at Ragatha throughout the series, her flaws, her growth, and what I think was meant to be the capstone of her personal arc. And hopefully we'll gain a better understanding of why this declaration felt a little bit weird, at least to me. If you're enjoying the series, don't forget to subscribe so you're here for the next character I talk about. And if you liked the video, be sure to join me for the after party stream on Twitch. I try to do these whenever I release videos, and it's just me playing some chill games and chatting with viewers. It's pretty fun, and I hope that you decide to drop by once you're done watching this. With all of that said, I think it's time we get started. Grab some water, some shrimp and egg rolls, and get comfortable. Let's talk about Ragatha. The Amazing Digital Circus is unique in the way it opens, in that it allows the characters to choose how they want to present themselves to the audience in the form of an opening theme song. Ragatha introduces herself as someone cheerful and open, and we see throughout the episode that she does her best to be welcoming to Pomni. She's shown to be kind, honest, and accommodating. To a fault in some instances. And the real twist here is that this is all true. This is Ragatha's actual real personality on display, and that's somewhat unique for the start of the series. Ragatha ends up being exactly what it says on the tin. The way that she presents herself and acts throughout the series is genuine, which is out of place when pretty much everyone else is putting up a facade of some sort. I think this has become a less common sentiment than it was at the start of the fandom, but I saw a lot of people as the show was airing calling Ragatha fake or manipulative, and that's just not true. She wants people to be happy, she enjoys helping, and none of that is a lie. Out of every character here, she's one of the only ones that is internally consistent with how she presents herself outwardly. And these are good qualities that Ragatha is expressing. It's a good thing to be kind and helpful and accommodating to other people's needs. The problem arises when these good qualities are pushed to their extreme. It's not a crime to seek validation from others. In fact, I think it's a normal human instinct. But if it's the only way that you feel worthwhile as a person, that causes problems, both for you and the people around you. Ragatha wants others to be happy because she genuinely wants them to feel good in their lives, but she also wants them to be happy because as long as everyone else is happy, the world is okay. We don't know a ton about exactly what happened in her upbringing, but I think it's safe to say that she probably associated her mother's happiness with safety and stability. Her own needs took a back seat because as far as she was concerned, those needs were taken care of as long as everyone else, i.e. her mom, was happy. As far as defense mechanisms go, it's a painfully honest one. If someone were to ask Ragatha what her preference on something is, she would more than likely say, whatever you want is fine, and absolutely mean it. Because as long as everyone else is okay, then she's okay. Her own feelings aren't as important as the needs of others, and she considers this a good thing. Because isn't it a good thing to put other people first? All of Ragatha's kindness comes from a well-meaning place and is genuine. But because she never considers herself in the equation, it can come off as disingenuous. There's a moment I think a lot of people misinterpret when it comes to Ragatha, and it's when Gangle says that it's hard to tell how genuine Ragatha is being. Ragatha's kindness is genuine. She's delighted to be there for other people. But when you're there for others at the expense of yourself, it means that you're lying about how you feel, even if it doesn't seem that way at first. Let's say that you get invited out for ice cream. You say that you're fine with anything and that they can just surprise you. This gets a bit of a laugh, which makes you feel pretty good. But then you actually get your ice cream and it's coconut flavored. And you really, really hate coconut. So what do? You said you were fine with anything, and in the moment it felt like you meant what you said. Whatever they ordered you would be fine as long as everyone was laughing and having fun. But as hard as you try, you can't erase the fact that you're a human being with preferences, and you hate coconut ice cream. But you can't complain, not now, not after you got a laugh and people like you for being chill and laid back. Everyone is happy now, and you just really, really don't want to make a fuss. So you slowly pick at your ice cream and try to keep up with the conversation as you pray that no one asks why you're not eating more of it. And you're looking around and you think that, hey, this is worth it. It's a small bit of discomfort for you, but it's worth it to see people around you happy. And you go home that night and think about all that happened and you feel pretty good. And that sinking feeling in your stomach is probably just too much coconut ice cream. Hopefully everyone had a good time and can look back on this fondly. This is a small, seemingly inconsequential scenario, but it's kind of the core of people-pleasing, because everything in your life is like this ice cream scenario. Somewhere in your brain, for one reason or another, you've decided that your own personal comfort is less important than what your friends or family or coworkers or whatever want. And yes, sometimes keeping up a friendship means some sacrifice. You might not be that into shopping, but you want to hang out with people, so you go anyway, even if you don't end up buying anything. But when your entire life is a calculus of what others want and how much you can stand that before it starts to break you, people start to notice. And it's difficult to be there for someone who refuses to recognize their own needs, because if they say that they're fine with anything, you can't really trust it. And this is really what Gangle means when she says that it's hard to tell if Ragatha is being genuine. Ragatha, with all of her heart, does mean it when she says that she's fine with anything, but only in the sense that she's willing to put up with anything as long as everyone else is enjoying themselves. And that's not actually very fun for other people to witness. People-pleasing is very much about setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. The problem is, most people-pleasers don't realize that their friends don't want to see someone burn alive. A people-pleaser wants everyone to be happy, and they never consider themselves to be part of the nebulous group called everyone. The sad thing about Ragatha is that she's kind and honest and overall pretty well liked by her peers, but she's completely incapable of seeing it, because you'll never be able to give away enough of yourself to make everything okay permanently. As Kinger points out, relationships are a two-way street. It doesn't make sense to try and do all the heavy lifting yourself, because not only is that exhausting, but it doesn't allow you to accept the kindness that others try to offer you. You've made your entire identity into being the pillar that others can lean on. So when others try to offer you the same support, your immediate instinct is to reject it. Because you're not the important one here, they are. It's just hard to internalize the care of others when you've spent so long seeing yourself as the acceptable thing to sacrifice. I'm spending a lot of time establishing what the people-pleasing mindset is like, because I think it's important for understanding why Ragatha does what she does throughout the series. It's a mindset that warps the world around you, because it almost never feels okay to just do something because you want to, or to feel something just because that's what you feel. Your own emotions become something that you can only express with permission, and a lot of people see that as dishonest, when in reality, you really are just doing what you think is right for everyone else. It's a way of interacting with the world that comes from a place of complete sincerity and honesty, and that's why it feels so confusing from a people-pleasing perspective when it doesn't work out. It feels like you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, but because you're willing to neglect yourself in the process, it manifests in ways that just aren't good for you, or the people that you care about. Everyone in this show is trying to cope with this situation in their own way, and most of these coping mechanisms involve some form of masking. Gangle is the character that we see this with most literally, but pretty much everyone is putting on a show in some way. And I think they have a hard time with Ragatha, both because of the things we've discussed about people-pleasing, but also because she's the only one whose facade involves being open and honest. There's a vulnerability to trying to be kind and gracious literally all of the time. And there's a special kind of hurt that comes from people seeing that and thinking that you're faking it. And so Ragatha is left in this loop of thinking she's doing the right thing, only for it all to eventually fall apart, and she's not really sure why. Ragatha's mask is her taking every positive thing she can think of about herself and shoving it to the forefront, because she assumes that any show of negative or quote-unquote bad emotions is going to get her rejected from her social circle. She's trying to be everything that other people want from her, and because of that, she's not able to be a full person most of the time. And all of this culminates in Ragatha being a character that is loved by a lot of people in the show, but not really liked by anyone. Let's be honest, before Pomni got there, no one in the circus was properly communicating, because all of them were trying to cope without actually forming a community where they could all support each other. The last time Ragatha tried to be open and commiserate with someone, She was told to never speak of that negative experience again, so she approaches any new members with as much positivity as she can muster, which unfortunately just isn't what they need a lot of the time. And all of this is working together to set up for an arc where Ragatha learns that she's allowed to feel those negative emotions, and expressing them doesn't make her a bad person. And she would learn that she's not going to be rejected or shunned for leaning on others the same way she'd allow others to lean on her. And in a lot of ways, the series does great setup for this arc. The conversation between Kinger and Ragatha is a really big turning point, where Ragatha is finally able to be honest about what's bothering her. And Kinger's advice is pretty spot on. Relationships are two-sided, and it doesn't make sense to try and carry it all by yourself. And when someone isn't in the mood, that's not a reflection of you as a person. It just means that they're not in the mood. Giving someone space shouldn't be the same as giving up on them. And on the reverse side, someone needing space from you doesn't mean you're some kind of irredeemable monster. This conversation is really, really good, and it sets up some great things. But there are parts that aren't set up well. And of course, the really big one of this video is Ragatha's relationship to Pomni. This hug moment is meant to be the moment where Ragatha fully accepts that it's okay to show her negative emotions, through the lens of her positive relationship with Pomni. This is her finally admitting to herself and to Pomni that not talking about what happened to Ribbit really hurt her. And I don't think she's expecting anything to come from this interaction. I think she's expecting some sort of small comfort and then for things to, go back to the way they were. She doesn't really buy it when Pomni says that she's her closest friend, and only accepts it after the physical reinforcement. She's being shown that Pomni does value their relationship, and she's not a bad person for trying to share her burdens for once. The problem is, there wasn't enough specific setup for this payoff to work super well. I don't think the average audience member has been given the impression that these two are good friends, and so it feels like this moment kind of comes out of nowhere, even though it's supposed to be the payoff for Ragatha's entire character development. If you look at the show specifically with the lens of these two being close friends, technically there's stuff there. Like Pomni thinking of teaming up with Ragatha before anyone else, or this moment where she talks about appreciating what Ragatha has done for her, or how after the Kinger conversation they agree that they need to talk and smooth things over, and they end up sitting together. There are a lot of little moments in the show like that, where it shows that they know and trust each other. However, I don't think there are nearly enough overt moments of them connecting. I don't typically have a problem with a relationship being subtle, but with something like this, I think we needed a little bit more. Because while there are plenty of subtle moments of them being close, there are also a lot of interactions between them that really aren't very good. And these end up overshadowing everything else, and leaving the general impression that while these two get along pretty well, they're not overly familiar with each other. For example, let's look at two moments from the softball adventure. Which of these moments leaves more of an impression? This one...
You want to bat for me instead?
I guess I could. If you really don't want to.
Think of it as a second chance to show him who's boss.
Or this one.
And then you just act like you never do anything wrong and everybody loves you, when in reality you just fuck everything up for everyone else!
Okay, let's, calm down a bit.
What? You're the one who said it's fine to be a jerk sometimes!
Do you see what I mean? These are from the same episode, but I'm pretty sure that most people only remember the part where Ragatha is yelling and Pomni has to try and defuse the situation. Honestly, there are a lot of moments in this episode that don't paint Ragatha in a very good light. And this makes a lot of sense, because this is all set up for her eventually reaching a breaking point in the next episode. She needed to be pushed emotionally so that she'd eventually crack and actually talk about her anxieties with Kinger. A lot of this episode is showcasing how disconnected Ragatha feels from everyone else. And unfortunately, this is an impression that continues because we don't really get to see Pomni and Ragatha come to a better understanding after this. Yes, they agree that they need to talk, but it's after the awards show and we don't see any of it. And then after that is the escape adventure where everyone is thrown completely for a loop and feeling not at all okay. And then we're fully into the climax and there's just not any more time for establishing character dynamics. Both Ragatha and Pomni are shown hanging out with other characters outside of adventures, but they never have a central moment of spending time just with each other that isn't in a group setting or during a crisis. And this is a really big problem, because this moment is only effective if we believe in this bond, and I don't think the show did enough to establish it. Now, it's worth noting that it would make sense within the show for Ragatha to not believe that they're very close, because Ragatha has been established at not being able to register when others care about her. Once again, looking at a moment in the softball episode, Gangle is able to hit a home run, and she tells Ragatha that it's because of her advice that she was able to do it. But Ragatha completely misses when it happens because she's caught up in trying to figure out her own tangled emotions. Ragatha isn't able to appreciate how she actually helped someone, because she's gotten caught up in her own issues with the one person in the circus that she actually dislikes. She can't see the positive effect that she has on other people's lives, even when they directly thank her for it. So it makes sense that in this moment where Pomni says that she considers Ragatha her closest friend, Ragatha wouldn't believe her. She doesn't think that she's good enough for anyone, so the idea that others appreciate her is one that she dismisses, both consciously and unconsciously. Pomni needs to physically reinforce the point to finally get Ragatha to realize that she means it. So again, it would make sense if Ragatha, as a character, does not recognize this bond. The problem is, the series didn't set up the proper contrast to that perspective. It makes sense for Ragatha to think she doesn't mean much to anyone, but the episodes before this don't do enough to show us that she's wrong, especially as far as Pomni is concerned. Like I've described already, most of the memorable moments between these two aren't positive ones, and it makes it hard to believe that Pomni sees them as close friends while Ragatha doesn't. I think this moment really could have worked if we'd had at least one scene where the two of them were spending time together and Pomni is really enjoying it while Ragatha is overthinking and sees it as no big deal and something that she's probably messing up. It would have shown that while Ragatha assumes she's doing it all wrong, Pomni actually considers her a close friend and values their time together. Because despite what Pomni says in this scene, we're not shown enough of it throughout the series. Much more focus is placed on the moments where things get really awkward between them, or how Ragatha can sometimes treat Pomni like a child in her attempts to be positive. It makes this moment a lot harder to take at face value, and I think that Ragatha's intended arc really suffers because of that. However, I don't think that this is the only relationship we didn't get to see enough of. Let's take a moment to talk about Ragatha and Jax. Time and time again throughout the amazing digital circus, we're shown and told that Ragatha and Jax used to be close. This is an important part of their dynamic, and one of the big character mysteries is what exactly happened between them. And in the end, I don't think we saw enough of what before looked like for them. Once again, because of a single moment in the final episode. This moment in Jax's mindscape kind of drives me insane, because it's a very brief glimpse into a dynamic that we never get to see. These doors and scenarios are Jax attempting to cope with the idea of the people around her dying, and she does this by making light of them. And yet, Ragatha is the only one that she cannot turn into a joke. If Ragatha dies, there is nothing left for her. There is no way to spin this into something funny. This is dark and sickening and violent, and it indicates so much of what Jax feels about Ragatha without actually showing us any of it. It shows very plainly that Ragatha is an extremely important person in Jax's life, and the thought of her death is one that leads her to give in to her most violent and aggressive impulses. The only one of these doors that is worse is the one that's chained, which people generally assume is Pomni's, which means that Jax values Ragatha's presence almost as much as Pomni's. This scene is indicative of a relationship that we see so little of, and it drives me a little bit crazy, because we don't get to see what Ragatha was like before Ribbit's death in any detail. And when this is explicitly an event that affected everyone extremely negatively, it feels weird to me that we don't see more of it. And look, I get it. The flashbacks with Ribbit are trying to show us a lot, and the main focus is Ribbit. But showing a bit more of how Ragatha and Jax used to interact would have served as a good contrast between then and now. It would show us just how much Jax changed after Ribbit's death, and it would give us some insight into how it affected Ragatha too. Ribbit's death is something that hangs over the circus for so long, and in the end, we kind of only deeply explore Jax's view on it. And while that makes sense given that Jax is considered very important in this episode, I think it could have been valuable to see how it affected other characters in more than just a passing glance sort of way. I think Ragatha probably always had some people-pleasing tendencies given the environment she grew up in, but I suspect that they got much worse after Ribbit's death, especially after she swore to never speak of it again in an attempt to stay friends with someone that had started to close themselves off completely. I think part of the reason that Ragatha made this promise is because she doesn't want to lose anyone else. And this moment where she finally talks about it is the first time that she's admitted to herself that the friendship ended there. It just feels like another facet of her character that could have been expanded a little more, even if it was just a little bit. Ribbit's death is meant to be an event that causes ripples that are felt years after it happens, and seeing a bit more of how Ragatha acted before her death could have shown us how it really did bring out the worst in everyone's coping mechanisms, with Jax becoming deeply unpleasant and Ragatha burying any part of herself she thought others might dislike. I think it could have been beneficial for the episode because it would have shown the true extent of Jax's self-sabotage, and I think it's a shame that we only get to see a small part of that, when it could have been a whole lot more. Overall, I don't think this is as big of an issue as Pomni and Ragatha, but it feels like another indication that Ragatha could have used just a little bit more time in the narrative. Or maybe not even more time, just using the time that she was given a little more efficiently. Because although Ragatha is not a main character, her presence within the show is used a lot of the time to show things about other characters. Ragatha's arc and her place in the show are very important in exploring the themes of identity that the series is going for. While others need to learn to be themselves, Ragatha needs to learn that being there for others includes being there for yourself. It's unhealthy to push everyone away, but it can be equally damaging to treat your well-being as something that can be sacrificed for the good of others. You start to lose yourself if you only exist to help other people, and you deserve the same support that you're always trying to give to other people. I think it's a shame that Ragatha's arc wasn't as fully realized as it could have been, but that doesn't stop me from loving Ragatha as a character. I relate so much to her struggles, and I really am very happy that she got an ending that allows her to live well and get the support that she had such a hard time accepting before. I'm glad that we got to see her grow and change for the better. And even if I don't think it was executed perfectly, this moment is still incredibly beautiful. I hope this video was able to do Ragatha justice, even just a little bit. And even as time passes and I move on to other things, I think Ragatha is going to remain a character that I hold very close to my heart. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Even though I talked a lot about Ragatha in this video, I still feel like I could probably find more to say. So if you want to see me talk about her again at some point, please let me know. As it is, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next video in the character analysis series. And just as one last reminder, I'll be live on Twitch for the after party stream at 11 o'clock PDT. Be sure to stop by and say hello. And if you're seeing this in the future, long after the stream is over, make sure to check out the VODs channel. As always, if you want to support my content in a monetary way and not just a like and subscribe way, I have a Patreon, where you can get things like exclusive updates, early access to videos, and much more. And I'd like to take this moment to thank all of my patrons, including but not limited to Perplexia Sphinx, Snick, Tree, Lurch18489, Sphinx, I May Be Dumb, Cassidy the Puppet Wraith, and Gibbous Rat. And thank you all once again for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I hope to see you all again soon. Bye!